Yikes! The Daily Mail wants $75 million and could well bankrupt Prince Harry following his disastrous legal action against the newspaper, which saw all 97 claims thrown out by the furious judge, Mr. Justice Nicklin.
But today, as he arrives for a speech at Chatham House, the moment this devastating verdict is announced, I can tell you, he has also lost his reputation.
I think that there are many in that legal team who understand that it was a stupid thing to do. It is so incredibly dumb and self-destructive.
The Daily Mail is reportedly seeking $75 million after Prince Harry's legal battle against the newspaper ended with all 97 claims being dismissed by Mr. Justice Nicklin.
Not only could he and his fellow claimants, including Sir Elton John, be liable for tens of millions of dollars, but his insurers could walk away too, further adding to Harry's financial pain.
The case has sparked major fallout, and the newspaper is now pushing for Harry to face a much bigger legal bill, raising questions about the financial impact if that request is approved. The newspaper's leadership is reportedly asking the court to remove spending limits on legal costs, which could leave Harry responsible for a far larger amount if the judge agrees. That move has added even more pressure after the case ended so badly for his side. The court found that Harry's evidence did not succeed, and the ruling also affects the other claimants, including Sir Elton John. Reports suggest the legal costs could reach tens of millions of dollars, while there's also speculation that insurance support may not cover those expenses, making the situation even tougher. Legal insurance can sometimes reduce part of the financial risk in cases like this, but it usually doesn't cover everything. Reports now claim Harry could receive little or no help from insurers, leaving him to deal with much of the cost himself if those claims prove accurate.
Now, in principle, the insurers were going to cover a small amount of any liabilities, because when you take a legal action like this, you can employ insurers, you can pay them for some protection, but it's never going to be for the full amount.
The verdict also triggered a political reaction, after Harry described the outcome as shocking, unwarranted, and an obvious whitewash. Those comments quickly drew attention because they came after a ruling by the Royal Courts of Justice. Reports also claim King Charles is unhappy with Harry's remarks because of the monarchy's constitutional connection to the justice system. While those reports remain unconfirmed, the comments have added another layer of controversy to an already dramatic legal battle. After the ruling, Harry called the verdict shocking, unwarranted, and an obvious whitewash. Those remarks have drawn strong reactions, with some legal commentators suggesting the judge may not look favourably on criticism that questions the court's fairness or impartiality. With another major hearing ahead, many believe those comments could add even more attention to the case. Harry has also faced criticism from parts of the media, including Guardian columnist Marina Hyde, who discussed the case on the Rest is Entertainment podcast. The reaction shows how divided opinions have become following the High Court decision. The Daily Mail says the judgment cleared the newspaper of the claims brought by Harry and 6 other claimants.
The fact is, they just failed to produce convincing evidence on any of 97 counts. Now that is a genuine horror show.
Was that 97 sort of individual stories that they were saying that
Yes.
that they had presumably...
These have derived from...
They could argue what had been derived from that, and they had evidence to back that up in court.
But they didn't,
yeah.
and they did not have a case. And the indictment from the judge was just incredibly damning.
Attention is now shifting to a 2-day hearing beginning on July 29, where legal costs are expected to be the main issue. That hearing could have major financial consequences. Because Harry and the other claimants lost the case, the court must now decide how much of the legal bill they will have to cover. Associated Newspapers is expected to request an indemnity costs order, which, if granted, could increase the amount it is able to recover. Paul Dacre, chairman of Associated Newspapers, has said the combined legal costs for both sides exceed $75 million. Reports also claim the company plans to recover as much of those costs as the court allows, setting up another intense stage in this long-running legal battle. Reports suggest people at the Daily Mail are deeply frustrated after the case, saying the legal battle placed heavy pressure on journalists and raised concerns about their careers and reputations.
Again, I mean, talk about bad advice. Your conduct after a trial matters. This is why when people come down the steps of a courtroom And they say things like, we're incredibly disappointed in the verdict. This is fine. These are emotions. You can have feelings about this or that. Instead, they attack the judges. There's a statement which attacked the judges' integrity. They sort of suggested that he was party pre, effectively, crooked, and that they hadn't been given justice.
One source claimed the company intends to go for the jugular in recovering as much of its costs as possible, signalling a tough approach as the legal fight continues. The newspaper argues the claims against it were weak, pointing to problems with key evidence during the case. One witness, Gavin Burrows, reportedly rejected a document linked to the claim, saying, "I've never worked for the Daily Mail, and that's not my signature." That became one of the most talked about moments of the proceedings.
The allegations were serious. They included allegations of dishonesty, unlawful conduct, and deliberately false evidence. The more serious and less likely an allegation is, the more convincing the evidence must be before a court can find it proved.
Former High Court Judge Colin Campbell told The Times that Harry's complete defeat could make an indemnity costs order more likely. He said there was little basis for reducing costs after the court ruled against the claimants on every major issue. Reports say the claimants secured after-the-event insurance through Temple Legal, which is designed to cover part of the financial risk if a case is lost. That policy is believed to provide around $19 million in coverage, well below the reported $75 million in total legal costs being discussed. The Daily Mail has previously told the court it had already spent millions defending the case, with more costs expected.
This man lied in court. He committed perjury. And he can sue me if he wants. King Charles must now strip his titles.
While Harry's legal team reportedly worked under a conditional fee arrangement, questions remain about how much insurance would actually cover. Some reports suggest that public comments made after the ruling, including Harry describing the verdict as an obvious whitewash, could become part of the wider discussion as legal costs are decided. A source close to Harry reportedly described his post-verdict statement as very stupid and very unnecessary. According to that source, criticising the ruling was unwise, because the judge still has broad discretion when deciding legal costs. There are also reports that insurers could challenge or reduce coverage if the court decides on a higher costs award based on its findings. In his 436-page judgment, Mr. Justice Nicklin said Harry's case relied too heavily on suspicion instead of evidence and placed significant weight on claims from Gavin Burrows, who later withdrew key allegations. Because all 97 claims were dismissed, some legal commentators believe insurers could argue that the case falls outside the level of support they expected to provide. Former High Court Judge Colin Campbell told The Times that insurers closely monitor cases and may reconsider coverage if policy terms are not met, depending on the wording of the insurance agreement. Reports have also claimed that Prince Harry and Sir Elton John agreed to help protect the less wealthy claimants from major financial hardship if needed. Doreen Lawrence and actress Sadie Frost were among those involved in the case, with reports suggesting Elton John could assist some of their legal costs. Other reports, however, claim he is not expected to cover Harry's expenses. If the court removes limits on recoverable legal costs, Harry could face an even larger financial bill. Colin Campbell has also suggested the judge could order an interim payment of around $13 million, potentially due within 2 weeks of the decision. If that happens, Harry could be required to make a substantial payment long before the final legal costs are settled. If legal costs cannot be paid, enforcement options can include bankruptcy proceedings, charging orders against property, and other insolvency measures. That possibility has become part of the wider discussion surrounding the case and its financial impact.
This verdict was make or break for the Duke of Delusion, and it is over.
Elton John is widely reported to have a fortune of around $643 million, putting him in a very different financial position. However, reports suggest he is not expected to help cover Harry's legal expenses, meaning Harry could be left to deal with the costs himself if they continue to rise. Reports also claim Harry and Meghan face significant ongoing expenses. Their Montecito home is said to carry an $8 million mortgage, with annual mortgage payments reportedly around $469,000. On top of that, are staffing costs. Private security expenses reported to be about $4 million a year, and other major financial commitments. Harry has also faced legal expenses from previous court cases, adding to the overall pressure on the couple's finances. Combined with their reported lifestyle costs, some commentators believe the situation could become increasingly difficult if another large legal bill is imposed. Despite those concerns, Harry is believed to have substantial assets, including an inheritance from Princess Diana, funds reportedly received from the late Queen Mother, and earnings from his memoir, Spare. Even so, critics argue that continued high spending and mounting legal costs could put increasing pressure on those financial resources if the current dispute becomes even more expensive. If Harry ultimately becomes responsible for legal costs approaching the reported $75 million, and no outside financial support appears, the pressure on his finances could become enormous. That possibility has become one of the biggest talking points following the court's decision. Another surprise is the criticism coming from journalist Marina Hyde of The Guardian. On the Rest is Entertainment podcast, which she co-hosts with Richard Osman, Hyde questioned the strength of Harry's case and the outcome of the legal battle. Her comments have attracted attention because The Guardian has often been viewed as more sympathetic to Harry and Meghan than some other outlets. The podcast argued that the case lacked convincing evidence, pointing to the fact that all 97 claims were dismissed. That result has led many commentators to question why the lawsuit was pursued in the first place. The discussion also criticised Harry's wider history of legal action, suggesting repeated court battles have become costly and unsuccessful. The hosts questioned the preparation behind the case and whether it was handled effectively from the beginning. Attention has also returned to Harry's court testimony, with critics highlighting differences between statements made during the case and passages from his memoir Spare. Those comparisons have fueled further debate about the evidence presented during the proceedings. Legal commentators have also stressed that publicly criticising a judge or suggesting the judicial process was unfair can be risky while court matters remain unresolved. With legal costs still to be decided, many believe Harry's post-verdict remarks may continue to draw scrutiny as the case enters its next stage. Many commentators believe this lawsuit was driven largely by Harry's long-running campaign against parts of the British press. Some have suggested other well-known claimants joined the case for their own reasons, but critics argue Harry became its most recognisable figure because of his ongoing legal battles with newspapers. Marina Hyde has been one of the most prominent voices criticising Harry's approach. As a longtime Guardian columnist and co-host of The Rest is Entertainment with Richard Osman, she has questioned both his public messaging and his repeated legal action. Her views have drawn attention because The Guardian has often been seen as more supportive of Harry and Meghan than many other publications. In one column, Hyde argued that Harry should take responsibility for his own decisions.
It's worth pointing out he's also dragged 7 other claimants down with him, including Baroness Doreen Lawrence, a woman who the Daily Mail supported through the murder of his son, Stephen Lawrence. However, the judge, Justice Nicklin, has accepted the explanation of all the Daily Mail journalists in question. This was not a split decision, as many of us suspected. This was a slam dunk.
Writing, "Don't you get it, Harry? You're not a victim. You are a rich man who can pay for his own sodding security." She also referred to him as Harry Antoinette, while criticising what she saw as a pattern of portraying himself as a victim. Hyde was equally critical of Harry's memoir, Spare, describing it as a mix of genuine personal grief and dramatic storytelling. She also questioned the Sussexes' media projects, arguing they had not lived up to expectations despite the attention they received. With the legal case now over, attention has shifted to the financial consequences and the upcoming decision on legal costs. Reports continue to suggest Harry could face a substantial bill, while the wider debate over his legal strategy and public comments shows no sign of slowing down. Much of the debate now centres on how Harry reacted after the verdict. Some commentators argue that accepting the court's decision, even while expressing disappointment, would have reduced the controversy. Instead, his statement describing the ruling as a complete and obvious whitewash drew even more attention. Harry also wrote, "The lengths to which the court has gone to exonerate the Mail is as shocking as it is totally unwarranted." Those remarks quickly sparked criticism from legal and political figures who believed his response went too far. Former UK Justice Secretary Alex Chalk publicly addressed Harry's comments, saying, "Expressing disagreement with a judgment is perfectly reasonable, but Prince Harry's attack on a High Court judge was over the top, personal, and unacceptable." He added that judges act in the name of the King under the UK's constitutional system and argued that personal attacks on members of the judiciary should be avoided. Chalk also said, however disappointed he was with the result, insulting one of His Majesty's judges is a line he should not have crossed. His remarks became one of the strongest political responses to Harry's statement following the ruling. Alex Chalk was not the only public figure to criticise Harry's reaction. Former Justice Secretary Sir Robert Buckland also commented on the issue, saying, "The tone and content of the attack by Harry was not appropriate." As the legal costs hearing approaches, the focus remains not only on the financial consequences, but also on the continued fallout from Harry's response to the judgment. Former Solicitor General Lord Garnier KC also weighed in on the controversy, saying that public figures, especially members of the royal family, should be careful when commenting on judges. He argued that, at a time when the judiciary faces growing security concerns, restraint is more important than ever. The debate has also revived discussion about Harry's long-running campaign over police protection in the UK. Critics continue to question his legal efforts to restore official security arrangements whenever he visits Britain, arguing the issue has become another source of public controversy. Lord Garnier defended the way the case was handled, pointing out that the judge spent months reviewing the evidence before reaching a decision. He noted that the judgment ran to hundreds of pages and included detailed findings of fact, showing the amount of work that went into the ruling. He added that, although the outcome was disappointing for the unsuccessful claimants, the lawsuit was always a significant legal gamble. In his view, the claimants chose to pursue a complex case that ultimately did not succeed. Lord Garnier also suggested it was understandable that the claimants felt frustrated after such a public defeat. At the same time, he argued that the outcome may have strengthened confidence in the newspaper's defence after the court dismissed the claims. With the legal costs hearing still ahead, the financial consequences remain one of the biggest unanswered questions in this long-running dispute. Lord Garnier argued that, in some situations, moving on from past grievances can bring more peace than years of legal battles. His comments have become a key part of the discussion surrounding Harry's latest court defeat. He also suggested the lawsuit may have had the opposite effect of what the claimants intended. Rather than damaging the newspaper's standing, he argued the outcome could strengthen its position after the court dismissed all of the claims. Critics have continued to question why Harry pursued legal action over articles published many years ago. Some have also pointed to his courtroom references to Meghan, noting that the disputed reports predated their relationship. Those arguments have fueled further debate over the focus and strategy of the case. A spokesperson for Prince Harry later said he stands by every word of his statement following the judgment. That response has kept attention on his comments as the legal costs phase moves closer. The ruling has also prompted strong reactions from journalists across the UK. The Times columnist Camilla Long wrote that one of the most striking parts of the judgment was the court's assessment of the newspaper's reporters. She noted that, throughout the decision, Mr. Justice Nicklin described several male journalists as impressive, honest, and candid, a finding that has become another major talking point after the case. Camilla Long argued that one of the biggest setbacks for Harry was the court's positive assessment of key figures connected to the Daily Mail. She wrote that the judgment praised Paul Dacre's position, making the outcome especially difficult for Harry after such a lengthy legal battle. Long also raised broader concerns about press freedom. She questioned whether it was healthy for journalists to face years of legal action over their reporting, arguing that disagreements with a newspaper should not automatically justify prolonged court battles. In her view, protecting freedom of speech remains an important principle, even when people strongly disagree with what is published. She went on to argue that journalism has become increasingly challenging as newsrooms shrink and public scrutiny grows. According to Long, reporters are facing greater pressure while also dealing with accusations of spreading misinformation, making the profession more difficult than ever. Long also claimed the lawsuit reflected a wider effort by campaigners to challenge media organizations they disagreed with politically. She argued that legal action should not become a tool for silencing reporting or placing excessive pressure on journalists simply because of opposing viewpoints. Finally, Long recalled an encounter during the trial involving a member of Harry's communications team. She said she was told Harry disliked the tone of one of her articles after she questioned his credibility. Long used that experience to argue that public figures should expect criticism and that journalists must remain free to express their opinions without intimidation. Camilla Long also argued that Harry no longer lives in the UK, yet continues to play a major role in legal battles involving the British media. She recalled an exchange during the trial, claiming a member of Harry's communications team approached her over an article in which she questioned his credibility. Long used that moment to highlight what she sees as growing tension between public figures and the press. She went on to argue that Harry was able to strongly criticize the ruling without facing the same professional risks that many journalists do. In her view, reporters involved in long legal disputes often deal with years of uncertainty, while the financial and personal consequences can be far more difficult for those defending the claims. Long also pointed out that major court battles can take years to resolve, noting that legal disputes often leave everyone involved waiting for final decisions on costs. She added that the judge in this case appeared highly engaged throughout the proceedings, making the upcoming costs ruling one of the most closely watched parts of the entire case. Now, all eyes are on the next hearing, where the court will decide how legal costs should be handled. That decision could have significant financial consequences and will likely shape the next chapter of this long-running dispute. What do you think about the case and everything that's happened so far? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update.